Sure. Kat, are we ready?
Sharon, can you hear us okay?
Yes, thank you.
All right. Okay, we can call the city council meeting of July 3rd, 2024. Be open. Does anyone have a conflict of interest? Okay. I'd like to hear a motion to approve the minutes of the executive session of June 5th, 2024.
I'll give you a motion to approve the executive session, or we're talking about the executive session, right?
Yes.
Executive session minutes from Wednesday, June 5th, 2024.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded. Does all those in favor say aye?
Aye.
Aye. I'd like to hear a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting and hearings of June 5th, 2024.
I'll give you a motion to approve the minutes from the public hearing and regular meeting of the city council from Wednesday, June 5th, 2024.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of June 5th, 2024, the regular meeting and hearings.
I have one thing to say about that, a correction or a
Yes.
question. On page 3, under city attorney, the bullet point that starts with city attorney. In the middle of the paragraph, it says he reiterated the property owners in the UGB can force the city to annex them into the city limits. Is that the correct wording for that?
What page, are you on page 3?
Yes, page 3.
Oh, I see, okay.
Us mentioned that the dispute. It's the city's been dismissed.
If they are adjacent to the city, they can force us to take them. So immediately adjacent. So if they are property abuts the city, they can force the annexation. If they do not directly abut the city boundary, then they can ask and we can annex them, but they can't force their way in.
Right, I'm just asking if that's the proper wording for that, that's all.
Yeah, I mean, I think we could add it if adjacent.
It says required under certain circumstances.
Yeah. Okay, that's accurate.
All right, so we don't need to amend the minutes, you think, Peter? Okay. It's been moved and seconded to approve the regular meeting minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay. There was no planning commission report, so we'll go to the mayor's report, who is absent. The mayor is in Africa. I wish him well. So we can do councilor report, and we'll start with you, Dan.
Oh, okay, well, I just got back from a 2-week vacation, traveled around quite a bit, spent some time in some other cities. And then I want to give a shout out to the public works guys, because the day that I came home, the first morning, I think it was Monday morning, Tuesday morning, I drove out and the public works guys were out there just trimming up trees and keeping things clean. I noticed there was no garbage on the ground anywhere. I turned the corner around to Packway, the street sweepers going, and I was thinking, you know what a really pretty community we have. And I think it's pretty amazing that we have just 3 guys out there working citywide and they are able to keep it to the level that they do. So I know sometimes we have our issues where garbage, but it is not a long, I mean, I love our city and I want to give a shout out to the public works guys. The other thing I want to give a shout out to our 2 citizens, Tina Popke and Cindy Bricka. I don't know if you saw what was on the news, but they did a nice little segment about our beach and keeping our beach clean. And it was very positive. Tina says that they did try to give a shout out to our public works guys and Chad and the fire department, but somehow that didn't make it into the segment. But I want to say thank you to them for showing the initiative to do that. And then I just have 2 more things. I did attend the beach cleanup meeting and I will be there this on Friday. And then I attended, this week, I'm attending a countywide elected officials meeting with the county commissioners. And also this CIS virtual training regarding the Supreme Court decision on homelessness, and really to see if there's anything that we need to do that's gonna affect us in any way. So,
Thank you. President?
Okay, I've attended all the meetings for the, what do we call it, the,
Public safety.
public safety. You know, okay, with the clock. Okay, the things that we have agreed to are, we've hired a project manager, the Flash Group. Right? We have now published the RFP for,
We're gonna discuss that tonight and then get your approval.
okay, for the architectural and engineering services. And we have scheduled through the Clash Group, community engagement meetings, right? So the public engagement meetings are gonna be in October, December, January, and February. What has not been decided for the general public is we have not selected an architect. That comes up in October meeting. Public safety building location, building size and the cost, which is, and and due to that, we have no idea what the scope of the work's gonna be or what it's gonna cost. Chief Josh over here, the police chief, as last meeting that we had, started to tell us what it is that he needs in, for his things, his needs. And Josh Como has also given his wish list. In addition to that, I had a meeting this last Tuesday with the planner, Gearhart, and Angelina about a piece of property over on East McCormick Gardens Road as far as annexation into the Gearhart.
The urban growth
boundary. And this looks like it's gonna be sort of a long slog in order to be able to get there. She's a neighbor of mine, and she, the main line coming down from Warren's water main comes through her property, and the building that regulates how much pressure there is to come into Gearhart and go north into Warrenton is on her property. And so I'm hopeful that perhaps we can, if we're, with Peter wanting to gain more access to the revenue here in the city, that we might be able to work out a deal. That's it.
All right, Ms. Sharon?
I have nothing to report other than the fact that I tested positive for COVID 3 days ago, which is why I'm not at the meeting in person.
Well, thank you for being here. And
I'm feeling well.
Yeah, you should, hope you get better.
Thank you.
And as a counselor, I did attend the same meeting that Dan was talking about the beach cleanup, and I was really happy to see that not only were our police and fire there, we also had leaders from some of the beaches and a representative from the county sheriff, so that was really good. It was well attended, and our city manager was there, and I learned a lot. I'll be cleaning up the beach with Dan, I don't know with you, but I'll be there. We might be in different places on Friday, so that's my report. And so next up is our esteemed police chief.
Not a lot to talk about today.
Our stats are not complete yet and sort of in a month, and with the 4th of July coming, I don't foresee those being done until Monday or Tuesday of next week, but we'll get those out to you. Speaking of the 4th of July, we just wanted to give y'all an update. We are all hands on deck. All of our officers will be here, starting at 1 o'clock. I'll be in earlier for the parade. And we plan to work through the night, so we're gonna be busy running and gunning, I can guarantee you that. We're gonna focus our efforts on 10th Street activity, until dusk. Fireworks are a big, to-do for us to stay on. Fires as well, just to report if there's anything to the fire department. And we're gonna be looking for MIPs to sort the conducts and really, try to get some DUI enforcement as well throughout the night. So just expect to see our cars roaming around, and we're gonna be, making a presence through the night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay safe.
Is the county gonna be assisting you?
County will be covering when they can. As you can imagine, they've got a lot of square miles to go after.
Yeah, they're gonna have 5 guys.
Yeah, they usually dedicate a beach patrol. So there should be at least one deputy that's dedicated to the beach that can come up and assist us if needed. We're expecting it to be very busy.
Oh,
This is a perfect storm for a very busy 4th of July,
Oh,
so
yeah, it's gonna be hot. We've got the 4-day weekend. Yeah.
everybody's already started coming into town Monday. You can start seeing the houses fill up, so yeah, it's gonna be wild.
Yeah.
Exciting.
Yeah, and the fireworks have already been going off, but you know how it sound travels at night. It's kind of hard to tell whether it's coming from within our city limits or outside our city limits. Yeah, it's gonna be.
There's a lot of challenges to firework enforcement, that being one of them for sure. And a lot of times people light them off and run. And how do you know who did what? You know, that it leads to a lot of confiscation, which, Brown got some last night already, so we've already started
Oh, really?
that fun stuff.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So do you know if Fire Chief is going to be here to give a report?
Fire chief is not, he is busy training at the moment and they are preparing for the 4th of July.
Okay.
They are running on the fire road, preparing that and doing some training for wildland firefighting.
All right, but he did give us a written report to look at, so that was good. So, Miss City Treasurer, you're up.
Okay. So fiscal year 23-24 wrapped up and all went well. I wanted to just give a brief little note about the first financial report, the revenue and expenditure report. Just because it's the beginning of the fiscal year, I know you guys see it all the time, but I just kind of want to remind everybody that when reviewing this report, this first report, revenue and expenditures, that income, that is the income, which is also known as the revenue, we call it revenue, but QuickBooks calls it income. Accounts, which are primarily page 1 and 2, anything over 100% in the percent of budgeted column means that the city has collected more revenue in the account than anticipated, which is really good. It means that we have more money to spend. Overall, the city collected 98.3% of budgeted revenues, and that's in all of our funds, so that's the total revenue. And remember that in expenses, also known as expenditures, accounts, which is primarily page 3 to the end, page 10. Anything over 100% means that the city has spent more than it budgeted. Which means that city staff should be monitoring and evaluating why these individual accounts are over. Maybe some circumstance happened, they should be conscientious, because the most important thing to remember about the expenditures is that we budget in appropriations, so we budget by category. So the individual account line isn't as critical. It is the actual category. So in expenditures, if you look at page 3, if you look at the administrative total 10 personnel services, we spent 99.2% of that. We're still a negative 2,000. That's right where we want to be. So we budget personnel services, materials and services, capital outlay. So those are the most important things to watch. thanks to the approval of the resolution for the transfer that we did in January, we adjusted a couple of figures so that those numbers were not over, which we can do by budget law, so budget looks, and reports look really good for June 30, so just kind of a little summary there. Significant transactions in June. We had the receipt of our annual Gearhart Fire Protection District contractual payment, which is in the 100018 account line item. A transfer from the Water Reserve Fund to the Water Operating Fund. A transfer from the General Fund to the Fire Apparatus Reserve Fund. The quarterly payment to the Gearhart Volunteer Fire Department for volunteer gas and clothing reimbursements. And a payment in 797900 for the owner's representative services on the public safety building. We are off and running and excited for a new fiscal year.
Thank you. This might be a redundant question. What happened to all on the first page under miscellaneous? Where did those reports go since they were left blank here?
So we budget just 1021 miscellaneous.
Right.
And then within the miscellaneous, we don't budget each one of those line items.
Okay.
So we budget down at the total 100021 miscellaneous. We just budget 20,000.
All right.
And then we have these little accounts in there. We don't break them down by individual account when we set the budget.
Thank you. Okay. City Attorney, what?
Sure, a couple of things. I was contacted by, a land use attorney that I know well, Wendy Collington, who is representing the owner in the, Palisades. And, she forwarded a water agreement that we had with the Palisades, very unusual agreement that was entered into in 2000. We may need to remove, the requirement to, annex. So I just got it, was able to review it. I want to touch base with Wendy again. But our agreement from 2000, the scope and what we agreed to is not at all what I would have expected to see. So, possible complication there. There is definitely a path forward as far as requiring annexations of future properties, and I'll probably bring that in August for our consideration, but we might not be able to grab this one. Also, was contacted by an attorney related to the property on 194 South Ocean. And we're like 15 emails in, and I still have no idea what he's looking for. So I don't know if there are improvements that were built without permits, because he says they're entitled to them by right, but he won't tell me where they are or what they are. And I've been like, what application should we use? And I'm like, kind of depends on. So we're just having a lot of trouble communicating with each other. But his last email, he said we're not yet going to have the zero clusters. That's good news. But yeah, so he suggested maybe they come up with their own application.
Where's 194 South Ocean?
It's probably about 5 or 6 houses in.
Yeah. On the west or east side?
194 is on the west.
Westland, yeah.
So,
Is that the one that's under construction, the one that was torn down and being rebuilt?
no, that's like.
No, I don't think so. But it has to do with oceanfront building line and.
I mean, like, what they're dealing with, we really have 3 lines. You know, we've got the no build line, we've got the line from 78 that, what was it? The professor, the Dr.
Palmer.
The Palmer line, and then we've got the line where you can build certain structures if they're not blocking your neighbor's view line. And that we impose ourselves. So what the improvement is critically important to knowing what application would be applicable. If there is an application applicable, because if it's west of the no build line, you can't build the structure. So
Seemed to me that Sunderland he already built out west of that.
He did.
that was prior to, I don't know what happened in that instance. That was prior to my time.
Dennis McNally allowed him to do that.
So there was a time where we were looking through correspondence to try and understand why something had happened. And the city attorney said, and I'm paraphrasing, I think we need to find an attorney that understands municipal law. So yes, that's true, and also horrifying. And there was stuff that just seemed to have happened where it shouldn't have, or where the city agreed to do stuff that is not necessarily in the city's best interest. And this sort of things come up multiple times. We had this issue with fences because he would just allow people to build a fence that exceeded our thing. So our maximum height. So what we did is we repealed our fence ordinance, and then we put in our fence ordinance, and then every fence that was built at that point became a pre-existing non-conforming use. So then I had a complete list of people that were permitted, people that he had said, go ahead and build the fence. And we had a comprehensive list. So some of the stuff, we just don't have a comprehensive list. And we don't have any written records of why he would allow something or not, because everything was done verbally, apparently.
Well, so is there any way that we can draw that back? And anybody that wants to tear their house down on the front there and then rebuild on out, that is not allowed? So he would be an exception to the building line?
The state's no build line, I believe, was adopted in 1979. And so there are multiple houses in the Palisades and other areas where they were built. They were already built prior to the line being imposed, and so.
But the Palisades is not the problem.
So I don't know why someone would be allowed to build where they've built, if they built west of the line, and I'm not sure why the neighbors wouldn't have litigated that, or why the city wouldn't have. I can't speak to that, and I don't know what would happen.
Well, the Palisades would be under an HOA.
Right, but it's like throughout the northern Oregon coast, there were a lot of houses that were built pre-1979 that are not in conformance with that line. Like that they extend beyond, or their fence extends beyond, or they have some other structure that's west of the line.
Yeah, move this along.
Alright.
Thank you, though. Thank you very much. So, city administrator.
Yes, thank you, council. Few things, I know last month we mentioned that we received a donation, for some EMT training. And, it was really cool. It was about an $8,000 donation, somewhere near there. And this was to kids, firefighters, that didn't have EMT status or their certificate, to go through that schooling. And I just wanted to thank Bob Moore, for making that donation through the community foundation. It wasn't mentioned last time that I do. I just want to make sure that you got some credit. I hope that you didn't say to keep it on the down low. I asked, but gotcha. But I just wanted to say thank you for doing that. That's going to make a big change for us. Very good. Tree situation. You folks received an email from me yesterday. I got the arborist report. What kind of tree is that again, Preston?
It's a pine tree.
Okay, not a spruce, apparently. Put spruce on the name. I took a little grief from that apparently. This tree was something that we were concerned with removing only because it's one of the iconic trees in front of the grade school. Mr. Moore brought this to our attention. We had an arborist take a look at it, and as you see by the arborist report you received, it is considered a dangerous tree, hard if not impossible to fix. limb up and to keep it from falling. So I am choosing to have that tree brought down week after next. I put the email out to the council just to receive any questions. So on an individual basis, if you have any questions or concerns. Otherwise, within a couple of weeks, that tree will be taken down. I have 2 quotes that I received for that too. So we're gonna pick the low bidder on this one. And if you have any questions, let me know. 4th of July parade, 10:30 lineup, 11:30 the parade starts, noon. Hot dogs will be served at the fire station. They'll have some merchandise for sale for their fundraising efforts from the association. It's going to be a great event. I can tell you that the police department, fire department, public works department, and administrative staff has been meeting over this for the last couple of weeks, along with other jurisdictions such as the sheriff's department, public parks, and all that. We are as prepared as we've ever been for the 4th of July. Not going to say anything's not going to happen, but we are ready and prepared to respond. I'm feeling good. We received 10 additional garbage cans to put around the community. Those went out on the trailheads today. We also have buckets out there for bags for people to go out onto the beach and into the environment, wherever they are, pick up garbage, bring it back to the garbage cans. Or if you're on the beach with Tina Popke and her group, she's been doing a wonderful job with her team. They're going to go out and clean up the beach. Group Sons of the Beaches, the 4x4 group is going to be out there helping pick things up. We have a Street. What's the name of the business? Restoration. Coastal Restoration is going to be out there helping people with their bags. We have a dumpster on 10th Street right now that was delivered today, so that is ready to go to accept that. We are, like I said, about as ready as we possibly can be. So we're looking forward to the 4th of July. The fire station and police station will be open all night. We're gonna have the firefighters and their families kind of get together at the fire station. Maybe enjoying some barbecue, the police departments and helping us with that, and the medics are invited to that as well throughout the night. And you council, please stop by if you'd like. We're gonna have a little bonfire out there and just enjoy the evening until it gets busy, if it gets busy. At the fire.
You gotta have it in a box, in a barrel?
Yeah, we put a little metal stand up and burn up some wood and mix some marshmallows, and it's very safe.
They might even write it up as training. I mean, it counts as training if you're having.
Yeah.
Right after the s'mores are done.
The street dance, that is on Friday night, day after tomorrow. About 5 o'clock, the city will begin shutting down part of Pacific Way and starting to get ready with the volunteers, especially Melissa Eddy and her family, among others that have been down there volunteering to put this together. So we're gonna block off the street about 5. The party will start at 7 and it ends at 10 o'clock. Public Works is going to be there with us to help us with some breakdown on that, some volunteers as well. So that's going to be a great event. Looking forward to it. But the street Pacific Way will be closed from 5 to 10. Saturday at 10 a.m. is the Gearhart Homeowners Association meeting over at Trails End Park near Centennial Garden. They are at 10 a.m. They say bring your lawn chairs. The tennis courts look like they're resurfacing. I just got a message a few minutes ago that the last week of July, first week of August is when the tennis courts and pickleball courts are going to be resurfaced, as they are now, with no changes. The pickleball side with tennis on the west side, east side, tennis on the east. So no changes to that. I would also like to say a big thank you to Jane Paulson, who donated 2 new pickleball nets for the court. They are much more commercial. They look great. So those were put into onto the courts by her and her volunteer group yesterday, and that was a really neat thing. We're gonna hold the older nets for backups and store those somewhere here as well. Other than what's on my sheet, generator project that's moving forward. We're getting some finalization on final bid on that. Election November 2024, accepting candidate filings at City Hall. The last day to file is October 27th. And on the ballot this year will be mayor, council position 2, and councilor position 4. 4th of July, the city hall will be closed tomorrow. But police, fire, and public works will be around. And then that's it, street dance. By July 7th.
Would you elaborate on the second bullet point there about the zip code update with state elected officials?
Yes, so the zip code update, we had a meeting that included some representatives and also the USPS. We talked about the zip code situation, and they were telling us at the time that the probability of us getting our own zip code is going to be very difficult and not likely. But they are working with within themselves to talk about the current post office, how to maybe do some things to enhance the services there. That post office seems to be running fine with the new purveyors. And there is still some information yet to come from USPS that we're waiting for. But right now, there's not much else to report.
Did they indicate why it would not be likely for us to get a zip code?
The USPS is actually getting rid of as many small post offices as they can and incorporating them into larger postal services.
Okay.
And that is really what it is. And so what we are asking them to do is the exact opposite by putting in another smaller for something for them to manage. So they said that's where a lot of the difficulty is.
Sure, I get it. Okay, thank you very much. And I see we have no visitors that were scheduled. So we're going to go to public communications for written and oral. And on the sheet, to sign up for the city council meeting, nobody put their name. But maybe there are some people that might have their hands up, but I don't know. But meanwhile, while they're checking that out, I will read anyone wishing to address the city council concerning items of interest not on the agenda may do so at this time. All remarks will be limited to 5 minutes per person. Requests to comment electronically must be submitted by email to the city recorder at info@cityofgearhart.com no later than 4 p.m. the day of the meeting, which is today. In-person attendees wishing to speak are required to sign in prior to the meeting. So I don't see anybody wishing to speak.
No one emailed to speak.
All right, thank you. And the only written comments that we have was from Judy Nordmark, said, thank you, city council member Sharon and the city workers for cleaning the sidewalk along the Pacific. I mentioned it to Sharon. The sidewalks needed cleaning up and it was done soon after. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Makes it very much more attractive. So thank you to Public Works and to Councilor Sharon for that. All right, now on to ordinances. The ordinance is, this one is regarding renaming a private road. And I need a motion to the second reading of ordinance 944. To name the street, one of my favorite all-time names. Just kidding.
Heavy Lane?
Penny Lane, no, the exciting macadam. So I just need a motion for the second reading, but that's all I'm saying.
So the motion would be that the motion to approve ordinance 944, the second reading once by title.
Yes,
I'll give you a motion to, for ordinance 944, an ordinance naming a private road McAdam Court to be, a second reading only, be approved by second reading.
I second that.
then moved and seconded that we approve ordinance 944 by the second reading. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Opposed? All right.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I did abstain before. Oh, well, never mind, I don't care. Okay. Okay,
All right, so, and just to clarify, I did not pick the name. That was going around there for a little while, that was a public process. And so it wasn't my thing that was on there, but this is a public process that we come up. So now we have ordinance 944 and ordinance naming a private road a cattle court. Thank you.
Okay. Now, new business, reserve funds request for public works project. Chad, I'd like you to take over on this one.
Will do, and from Public Works, Stephen Peterson is with us as well, that can answer any questions that we have. But this is a request for funds for a new pickup truck for Public Works. There's a letter from Public Works Director Mark McFadden on the back of the synopsis. The vendor has been selected from the Oregon State procurement called Oregon Buys site. They hold an agreement with the state, therefore multiple bids are not required. So we did not get multiple bids. We went with the state bid, which is the low bidder in regards to, they already put this together. And Ms. Justine helped us through that process. So the pickup truck that they're looking is a 2000 or brand new F-250 Ford for up to $49,000. Council options are make a motion to approve the equipment and reserve funds, take another action desired, or deny the request. We recommend the purchasing of this new truck for Mark's comments on the back. And Mr. Peterson is here to answer any questions that we might have.
I have a question. What are you going to do with the 22-year-old F-150?
I believe we're gonna be auctioning that.
Yeah, so that'll go up to auction, so we'll make that available and people can come in with sealed bids and bid for that, and then we award it to the highest bidder.
And then the funds that come in for that, does that go back into Public Works?
Goes into the general fund.
Okay.
However you want it to go, it could go into the reserve, it could go back into there, but it also could go into the.
Yeah, the best would probably be put it back into the reserve account.
Okay.
For the public works vehicle reserve fund.
Yes.
Do you have anything you want to add?
Not really. It would be greatly appreciated to get a new pickup. We've got, all of our rigs are over 100,000 miles now and getting up there.
Okay.
That's just baby miles.
Yeah.
Okay, I need someone to make a motion to approve the equipment reserve fund up to $49,000 for the attached bid.
I'll make a motion to approve the equipment reserve funds request up to $49,000 per the attached bid.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Zipping through this.
Thank you, Council. And Steve, if you need to go, imagine.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thanks for coming in.
great to hear.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, next, the discussion for the public safety building process. Chad, I'm turning it over to you.
Thank you. And Councilor Devereaux has already kind of alluded to that and used this sheet. So we have been in multiple meetings. We've been in 3 staff meetings with 2 councilors, the Klosh Group, the police department, the fire department, and city administration. These 3 meetings have been to begin talking about the process, to go along with our process for going for a public safety building. The important part in this is that no decisions have been made yet about location, type of building, what the size of the building, and how it's going to be built. These are all part of the process that we want to make sure that is, and especially the mayor, that wants to make sure that is in a public forum. So the first part of what we've been working on is just to kind of get the game plan put together for how we're going to approach the public. And on the back of this sheet that Preston Devereaux was looking at is the process outline. What has been decided, some dates, and what has not been decided. What we've done so far is we've discussed the process of how we're going to get some experts involved to begin giving the city and its residents information on where we are as far as what we have available to us, both the locations for the building, the amount of space that we have for the building, the type of construction, that we're going to have to build this building in, being a critical infrastructure within the tsunami inundation zone. We've had conversations about the type of things that the fire and the police department would like to have, kind of begin going down that path as far as the basics for what would be necessary for such a public safety building. And then we started talking about hiring an architect to be able to get this information put together in a format that we can begin going through these public meetings, bringing the public through with what the ideas are from the public, from the city council and the staff, and how we can accomplish them, and then begin looking at pricing before we go to any type of bond issuance. So what has been decided, as Preston was talking about earlier, is that we have hired the management group in Klosh. We are going to be doing a meeting at the mayor's request in August. It's going to be a simple town hall meeting, a short one, that will introduce the Klosh group to the community, talk about what the Klosh group has done for other communities and what they're going to do for us. It'll be more of a familiarization with the Klosh group and how the city process is going to work. Then after that, we're going to get into October Community Meeting 1, which hasn't been scheduled. The date isn't scheduled yet, but it will be in October, education and listening, to where we can learn a little bit more about what we have, what we need, and then listen to our constituents and residents and people who otherwise live here in town. Meeting number 2 is to review some architectural concepts. It takes time to get these concepts down, to start doing some planning. It also takes money. So we're going to be discussing some of the concepts in December. January, another community meeting with project pros and cons, and a little bit more deeper dive into some of the costs that might be involved in this. And then in February, a community meeting, again, final evaluation and recommendation to council. So it's a pretty robust meeting schedule. There's going to be a lot of opportunities for the public to attend and to listen in and to give input. The things that have not been decided, again, we have not selected an architect, but tonight we're going to be talking about putting out for bid an RFP for an architect to come in and help us through this process. That's coming up next on the agenda, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Once we have the architects, the RFP out, and we begin receiving bids from these architects, September period of time will be a period of time where we can do interviews with these architects to make sure they're the right fit for Gearhart. And that will involve some counselors, probably some people from the public, some residents of Gearhart as well, and staff. And then in October period of time, near the city council meeting, if not at the city council meeting, the city council can then make a decision, an informed decision on who the architect that we want to help us through the first part of the process. Now, this isn't the architect that we will necessarily hire to take us through the entire process. That will be another decision of the council and in the future. But this will at least get us to pricing and then potentially going out for a bond if the council and residents so choose, if the council so chooses. We also have not talked about the public building size and or cost at this point. There's a cost range in the RFP that we've been talking about, somewhere between 10 and 15 million. That was just an estimate that we threw out of what the cost could be for such a building. And that's also so that we can right size the architect who will help us through that project. We have to give an estimate so the people that are putting in bids have a better understanding of what it is that we're working with. But we are not sure what the costs are going to be at all. Public safety bond vote date has not been determined yet. There has been conversation about potentially November 2025, but we're not sure. That is going to be part of the process. Education, listening, concepts, and all of that. The city council will help make that decision in the future. Also, we haven't heard the recommendations from the community to the city council. So that's another important portion of this process. And Councilor Dana, I apologize. There is a meeting on the 9th with the Klosh group. So I just want to make you aware of that. We will have another meeting with Councilor Dana Gould, Councilor Preston Devereaux, police, fire, and city administrative staff to again talk about the RFP process and then to continue moving forward with this outline of meetings. Any questions from the city council? Yes, ma'am.
In this timeline that you have between August 2024 and February 2025, what date do you suggest that the location will be chosen and how?
Somewhere within these dates here, everything really needs to, if we were gonna go with November 2025, a lot of those decisions would need to be made in a February town hall and a March city council meeting.
Then how can you review the architect concept if you don't know where it's going to be?
That's the process of going through these meetings here, working with the work group.
Okay.
Those locations will be discussed in the work group meetings and in the public at the town halls.
Okay.
And we'll receive feedback from them. It's gonna be tight.
I guess. Thank you.
We would only go out for bonding if there's very strong community support. So like, we don't, if there'll be some polling that will need to be done at some point, because we don't know if this, some in the community say this is a priority, we don't know what that number is. And then something can be a priority in the community, but people might not want to pay for that priority. So, I mean, we would need, I mean, there would need to be substantial community support. And then if there isn't, then there needs to be more community engagement and more process. Because it doesn't make sense to go out for something that we don't have the numbers.
That's true. Thank you.
I have a couple questions. So it's my understanding there's already been 2 meetings and there's going to be a third one, is that correct?
There's been, yeah, actually 3 meetings with the Klosh Group so far. We did an extra meeting to discuss the RFP. And then there's going to be another council staff work group meeting coming up on the 9th.
Okay.
Of this month.
I've had some feedback from some citizens that the process so far with the meetings with the Klosh Group have not been in keeping with the city's commitment to transparency. I did speak with Jessie and she said that she had kept notes of the meetings and given those to the participants afterwards. I'd like to see those notes published on the blog or somehow put out to the public in keeping with our commitment to them to be transparent throughout the process. Also, I'm not comfortable with the fact that the meetings have only included 2 of the 5 council members, as opposed to having been set in a work session type of format, for instance, where all of the council members would be present.
Okay. I think the notes on the blog in the public is that's something that can be easily accomplished. So far, the meetings have been that we've done within the city. The reason that we haven't had a third or the entire council at these meetings yet is because then it would be a public meeting. And we can do that. But right at the moment, at this beginning part, we are just working on a lot of housekeeping things, trying to establish what it is that we need to accomplish in the short term, and then how to get to the public meeting portion of things. We don't have a lot of information. The conversations that we're having are not substantial to any decisions that are being made. So working with the Clash group, we thought that it was easiest to do this outside of public meetings. But very soon we will be breaking into public meetings when decisions and things need to start being made. And that was the decision of city staff, Clash group, and the counselors that have been involved. It just adds another layer to where these conversations to get to the very beginning of this process, we thought would be easier within staff. But now we're getting ready to break out and start making these meetings, or at least the meetings that we're having, public.
I have a comment to make. One of the things that occurs to me, and maybe Peter, you can advise me on this. When we're in these meetings, I have prior experience working on projects like this as a government employee. And I have never had elected officials hands-on to the level that we are hands-on to this. And maybe I'm mistaken, I was under the impression that city council was aware that Preston and I were gonna be the ones attending this meeting on behalf of the council. We can't have more than 3 people or more than 2 people, I'm sorry, because then it becomes a serial meeting. I'm a little concerned about the number of people that have called the Clash group, and could we be bordering on serial meetings by people doing this instead of waiting until meetings and asking questions? But my question is, at what point do we separate the powers? And remember, there is a separation of powers. We are not supposed to be the doers. We don't have to be there to make every decision or to be in every discussion. That actually is what the city is supposed to do, and the experts, we're supposed to be relying on them to give us the information, and then we make policy decisions. So I'm a little fuzzy on this. Maybe you can clear this up for me.
Yeah, so my understanding, and I was confused about the process too, and a bit confused about what the Clash group's role was. Apparently the Clash group did this for the fire, for the public safety building in Manzanita. And so in order to scope this project, they need to understand what the needs of the police are, what the needs of the fire are. They need background on the city because every city is different. I think that's why they've had city councilors involved. And those conversations are so they can scope what they're going to do. So like, there has to be enough information in the architectural RFP to get credible architectural firms to have an idea of what they're signing up for. But we also know that this needs to be a community conversation, a community. So it's like, how much information can be in there to induce someone to bid for the like preliminary sketches and giving us the idea of the engineering costs. So we can then have a conversation with the community and say, these are the costs associated with location A versus location B. This is, in an ideal world, there would be this many bays for trucks, but having 5 bays versus 3 will cost X versus Y. What would your preference be? And then would you be willing to pay for it? I mean, would you be willing to agree to the bond or levy to pay for this? So I had thought it was more of I think the Clash group does less strategic messaging than I had anticipated. That they're part of the reason they're bringing in the architect is so that they can have, the architect can have those conversations and inform their vision. And then I think that, to your point, generally the job of the council is to create the vision and values, and then the implementation is left up to staff. But I think that we learned a lot of lessons the last time we went out for a fire station. And one of the things that I heard over and over again was people didn't feel that they've been listened to or heard. So I think that's why these conversations don't need to happen. But like Slosh Group also needs to be able to have conversations so they can get a better understanding of both the community and community needs. And I think that those are more of what I would term as staff meetings. That's what would normally happen via staff. They wanted some counselors involved. And that's how they want to do it. But once I think they have an idea of the scope, and then once Jesse has a better understanding of Gearhart, then everything's gonna be public process. I mean, if we get polling, we're gonna share that with the community. You know, all of that would happen, but there need to be some other conversations that are happening that are just so much more efficient than to do it that way instead of community meetings or public forums.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, just tell me if I'm getting you wrong. What you're saying is that initially what it needs to be is the experts, the people that know their job and know what they need in order to be able to do their job, are the ones that need to be in the meeting now, and that the public doesn't necessarily need to come in and tell them what they need or what they don't need, but the public will be involved when the time comes to decide on the money, location, and, to
Right.
check and make sure that this has not become what people previously called a Taj Mahal or unreasonable or unneeded.
Right, and one of the other things that we heard was that this was staff driven. This was staff driven and that the electeds are the electeds, and why weren't the electeds more involved in it? And I think it's to your point, because generally it's staff that implements the vision and values. But there are people in the community that did. I think they believed it was far too baked. The whole concept was far too done prior to it going. And that I remember very differently. I remember us soliciting people's opinions over and over again and having town halls, but COVID happened and yeah, we had a lot of issues. So I think it's like, how can we efficiently get to a place where we can then determine whether people want to move forward? And the other thing that I'll say is it's really hard, in my experience, for people that are tasked with coming up with the concept that will maybe come to fruition, for them to understand we might not be. We might not be going out for a vote. We might not be, this project may never happen. Or it may not happen for 10 years or whatever it is. And so when I reviewed some of the things, they're like, well, if this is never going to happen, then why would anyone bid on it? And it's like, yeah, but it might never happen. And we need to be really upfront in our conversations saying that we need, to Preston's point, community support, not just voter support. We also need voter support. We need to know what those numbers are. And then, are they willing to pay? And if we have community support, if we have support from our voters, and if people are willing to pay for this at a high number, because what people will say and then how they vote, there's a spread there. So it need to be high. If all that happens, then we'll go out, and if it won't, we won't.
Well, before you cut me off, and I know we need to move on with this, I have some concerns with what was just proposed. We need to remember that elected officials are not here for the long term. And when it comes to projects like this, time is money. We need to get it moving forward. What we cannot afford is for in November, should the city council look completely different, and now we have new city councilors that need to step in and be involved, that it would become something where we're gonna have to pivot suddenly and change, and then that's gonna cost a lot more. We need to keep moving forward. We need to rely on them, and then we need to do our job in overseeing them and making sure that it is going there. But I am not gonna be part of serial meetings, and if people are gonna continue to call, I'm gonna resign from this right now. I'm gonna ask the city council to either clarify if they want me to represent the city council, or if somebody else wants to represent, because I am not gonna be part of a serial meeting.
Yeah, so we need to be really careful that decisions are only made in public meetings, and that they're not happening. I think that we're almost to the point where Klosh we're going to be out of this. when they're going to be doing everything publicly. It's just like, there's a little bit of time that needs to happen, and again, they bill by the hour. So it's not like me where it's a flat fee a month, so it's like, hey, let's ask them some more questions. Like, they're billing by the hour, and we need to efficiently get through this. So, I now have a better understanding of the scope of their work and how they do their work. And that work has been successful in other communities, and maybe it will be successful here.
I think that to Sharon's point, though, there is a very large point where we want to be more transparent in this process. I can say that right now, no decisions have been made in regards to anything substantial. Right at the moment, we're trying to have these meetings to get Klosh Group up to date with what happened during the last event, what we have as far as infrastructure, what some of our basic needs are, and then that way we can start heading towards an architect. The architect will help us with the public meetings and bringing in some of the communication as well. But I think that every city council meeting between now and when we start doing our public meetings should involve an update from the Klosh Group. I would be happy to forward the city councilors the notes from these initial staff meetings that we're having. And then once we get some of the ground rules done and some of this information established, just to get started, then the public meetings and the public inquiries start. But at this point, it would be really hard for us to hold public meetings for every staff meeting that we wanted to have about this in order to remain transparent. So it's a balance. We're going to try to figure that out, but I can tell you that right now, no decisions have been made. And everything that does need to have a decision by the council, we're bringing to them. For example, tonight, I'm putting out this RFP. We're not selecting an architect tonight. What we're doing is we're asking you for us to go out and have an architect give us their proposals. And so then it will become a public process for the city council and upcoming city council meeting. So having an entire public process for staff meetings, that could really slow things down as well, but we're not gonna get to a point where we're making decisions outside the city council or the public's knowledge. As major decisions anyway. I don't know how that, does that answer your question at all, Sharon?
I guess so. I mean, it's really hard to follow all this because everybody's got a lot to say and I'm not well. But so am I hearing you say that you don't want to put the meeting notes out to the public?
That information is not ready for public, no, because no decisions have been made, and we're just talking we're talking about the procedure for getting it out to the public at this part. If we did put it out to the public, I mean, I wouldn't recommend staff meeting notes because then people aren't here to understand really the conversation based off these notes. And some people can take those notes and really make some inferences that may not be true and start heading down another path. And then we're back into trying to respond to Facebook and those sorts of things. So we're trying to be careful on not getting anything sideways with the public at this point is really, you know, kind of our goal. We want to make sure the communication is robust, but to get there, we have to take care of a few things just initially. But soon and very soon, these will become public meetings because there's some big decisions that need to be made.
Okay, understood.
Okay, so back to my question. I want clarification on whether I would be happy to step down from this and have somebody else represent the council if the council is not confident and has no faith in me and is going to call and create a situation where it's could be a problem.
My understanding is the Klosh Group wanted 2 people, and that you have been not in Gearhart, but in other places, part of these processes before. You know, and Preston can tell me why something happens, you know, 50 years ago, whatever, because he's been here and has deep community ties. So as far as like understanding the culture of Gearhart and the vision and values of, because this isn't Manzanita. So what they did in Manzanita may or may not work, but they need Gearhart is a complex place, and I think for any outside person to be successful, they need to have some help understanding what works and what doesn't. So that's my understanding of why you are on this. If the council wants somebody else on it, because there's someone else has skills that would be beneficial to the end process, then that's not a lawyer decision. What I can say is the
And again, I'm
more,
not asking you, I'm asking.
yeah, the more
conversation.
the more people that are involved, at least in the early scoping period, because that's all this is scoping. The more likely it is that a decision will be made, serially or not, outside of a public meeting, and that's what we're working really hard to avoid happening. So how can we involve elected officials that will make the overall process better? And also do everything as transparently as possible and make sure that decisions are made in public meetings. And that is a tightrope that we were walking. And that's why I've been involved in some of these Klosh group meetings. I wasn't involved in the first one. And it's to make sure we're not making a mistake. So it's up to council to decide what to do.
Okay, can I say something? Okay, number one, Danny, you've had numerous involvement in public safety buildings in your background, okay? My background is in construction. Klosh Group's background is in management, right? City of Gearhart, you know, does not have a real good reputation as far as, you know, hiring people, putting the cart before the horse, everything else. I mean, the mayor wanted us, as soon as we hired the Klosh Group, to go on out to public meetings, even before the Klosh Group even knew what the hell we were doing. So this preliminary stuff that we're doing right now, and I don't want you to bail out. This preliminary stuff that we're doing right now is for us to get our ducks in order so that we can present it to the general public. And we're gonna let the general public have more say and more input, which is what we didn't have over the last two bond measures, okay? If we want this new public safety building to come to fruition, we need to take baby steps and involve the general public. And the general public right now, we haven't made any decisions. We haven't even come together as to what it is that we need to present to the general public. And that's my big deal. So as far as the rest of the counselors go, we're the two that know most about what's going on here. Okay, we're the two most qualified. Does that answer your question, Sharon?
I don't think it was Sharon's question. Sharon, my question was, if we're gonna have two people attending these so that we avoid the serial
Exactly.
meeting, we can't then have other people calling. They have to trust that we're gonna give them the information that they needed when they need it. The decisions we've made so far as timeline and things like that, that's not something that has been needed to go out to the public right now, the minute we make the decision. And so having it at a city council meeting when we're still presenting the information, there are people out there trying to muddy this and trying to create problems where there are not problems, and we cannot be led by that. We have to evaluate when we get those questions, whether that's a reasonable question or whether we should say, yes, that's gonna be part of the process, we're gonna do public. But we need to we cannot do this. Every single decision that we make cannot be a community decision. When the decisions need to be made by the community, we'll present them to the community. When there's something that the city council needs to know right now, we'll provide them with that information. But if we're gonna we're gonna say there's gonna be two people in on this, and then everybody else is gonna start calling in because this isn't the first time I've heard this, that's gonna be a problem for me, and I'm going to absolutely step down.
Yeah, I think that I I can't really reiterate enough that no decisions have been made, like. A decision. Like Klosh Group recommended going out for an RFP, that was brought to the entire city council. To decide whether to go out for an RFP, Klosh Group recommended a schedule. We don't know whether this will be the schedule because we don't know. If they can even get the architectural and engineering information they need post. After we've talked about vision values, what we want, the amenities it needs to have, the amenities we'd like it to have. Like, we don't even know if they're going to be able to get that under the wire for the November election. They think that that is possible. We don't know whether we go out in November. We don't know whether we go out the next May or in a year. You know, after this, there are probably going to be some questions for people, maybe some people that might have the means to donate funds that would impact the cost of, or the amount of the bond. Those are conversations that, you know, could happen, but all of this can't happen in public meetings. Because if it is, we will never get through. It would be a multi-year process. I mean, it's just, that's just how it is.
I agree.
Like, there is some.
And very much more expensive process.
Right, and thank you both for being willing, you and Preston for being willing to donate your time and expertise to this. But again, when it came time for a decision, it's a council's decision.
Exactly.
All right, well, right now, I'm gonna get back to the topic, which the council, if they so wish, can approve through consensus the posting and collection of proposals from the architect and engineering firm. So do I have a general council consensus to post these proposals for architect and engineering firms? Yay.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yes.
Sharon? Yes. Okay, any opposed?
No.
All right, thank you. Okay,
She's sorry, I didn't mean to say.
I understood that. Okay, the next thing we're going to talk about is the discussion for the short-term rental transferability, interpretation and clarification. And I don't know if I should turn this over to Chad or to our lawyer.
So, me, I get
Well,
to-
there you
I get
go.
to do the
There
STR.
you go.
The prior city council that helped craft the STR ordinance kind of had a. Their goal was that homes would return to being either domiciles or residences and not be short-term rentals. But also they recognize that the people that have been short-term rentaling would be able to continue. And then if it were passed down due to inheritance or something else, that would continue. As long as the ownership didn't change. So we have this question about whether one owner would, one owner selling 50%, if that would make it so that they could no longer rent the property, or if having 50% remain with the original owner, if that's enough to have it continue to be grandfathered in. So I think that the language in our code is a little bit ambiguous, and since we wrote this code, there's something else that's happened, which are companies that are selling fractional interest in houses. So they will sell 1/52. You will buy 1/52 of a house, which basically means you have a week, or 2/52 of a house. And it is happening a lot in Napa Valley, in wine country in California. There's litigation going on right now over it. So to the extent that transferring a portion of this and having a remaining owner stay at 50%, if that doesn't discontinue the use, Then I would also like to have some guidance on how much needs to stay with one of the original owners or their families. Because these fractional shares in houses look a lot like short-term rentals.
It looked like,
Timeshare.
Yeah,
Yes.
it looked like timeshares.
yes.
Let them go to Worldmark.
So my understanding is, this is prior to my arriving in Gearhart, my understanding was that this was voted on by the people. Yeah, is that correct?
Right, so
Yes.
they did an initiative.
Okay, and it says that a vacation rental permit is transferable only by inheritance.
Yes,
However, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
So this could be a way to get around that, because I could then perpetuate it forever, because I could sell it to him. And then his son could inherit it, and then it could continue farther than I think what the voters intended. Am I incorrect?
yeah, no, I think that that's a reasonable interpretation, is that what Mayor Whittup and that council wanted was that families should be able to keep it, but that once you sold it, you lost the grandfathered in. And then this is a little bit different because they're two unrelated, or maybe they are related, we don't know. There are two owners that each own 50%. The one wants to sell it, the other one doesn't. And I think it does quite well as a short-term rental. So whether or not this is transferable would impact, I believe, whether it's sold and also what kind of price it would fetch. Because if you are getting that income stream, that does potentially change the value of the house as compared to your family's vacation house or also.
Okay, well, I mean, if you have two owners and one of them wants to sell, then if the other owner doesn't want to buy him out, okay, then all bets are off. It ceases to be a short-term rental.
If that's the way you want to interpret that, and I think that's a reasonable interpretation, then this is why I'm bringing it to you.
Okay.
Again, I wasn't here at that time, but I didn't see it and as ambiguous when I read it. I thought that's what the voters intended, was that it's you either inherit it or you don't. You can't sell off your share and have it continue to be a short-term rental. There's no avenue for that in here.
Right, so there is the one owner who had it when it was a short-term rental that still retains 50%. And that's the ambiguity, is if a majority of the house is not being transferred, and this is 50-50, then is that a change in ownership for the purposes of this code?
Only if the current person who wants to have retained the ownership. You know, if the other person gives up his deed, that's the only way I'm ever gonna see it.
Okay, so if there are two owners and one buys the other one out, then they would retain.
Correct.
If the one sells to an unrelated third party, then they lose the STR. Is that your preferred interpretation?
That's my,
I think that, to me, that is the only interpretation that I see. I don't see
Yeah.
any way that you can continue to sell it and you can transfer it by sale.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that makes sense. And I was talking to Chad about this yesterday, and he mentioned to me that it would be really hard to keep track of the residents that had 50% short-term rental and other, it would be
Yeah.
really hard to keep
Right,
records of that.
yeah, particularly with everything that's required,
right.
you know, in a short-term rental.
Yeah,
Yeah,
who would go after if they're not looking at who are,
Yeah.
to the rules.
This is like a shell corporation.
yeah, I understand.
Of the Cayman Islands.
Right, so that's why I wanted to bring it to you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Mayor Carey in Alaska, in Africa, he wanted to know if we should have a work session on this information. And, but I can see as a consensus of three of us so far.
And Sharon's here as well.
Oh, Sharon, what do you
Yes.
have to say?
Yeah, I agree, like, I am with
Yeah.
the majority.
It has to be, yeah, I agree that it should be 100% vacation rental.
Do we
Okay.
need to clarify this, or is this something that we can just?
No,
policy decision and-
they've reached out to us, you're entitled to vast deference in your interpretation of your own code. They reached out to us because they weren't sure and they wanted to understand and I think that one of the potential purchasers also may have reached out, or maybe it was a realtor, I don't know. And I said, let's take it to the council and get their interpretation.
Yeah, I think it would be very unfair to all the
Yeah.
other people that were not able to sell
Yes.
a short-term rental to interpret it any other way.
Okay, so how do we move forward on this? I mean, do we need to,
We just say this is what they said.
so just a consensus?
Yeah, to the extent that there was any ambiguity,
Sure.
the ambiguity's been resolved.
You're not making a decision based on this particular issue, you're helping us interpret the code.
And you're helping inform other people that where there might be four siblings that own a house and maybe that house is
Yeah.
a vacation rental, what their options are going forward if one of them doesn't want in.
Which I think that makes sense. If there was four and one wanted to sell, the other three picked it up, I would see that the short-term vacation rental permit would not be diluted. It would still be within the family and for the purposes. But if it was to sell and a third party came in, you're kind of diluting things. It would be very difficult for us to administrate, but then potentially to track that going forward, you could have entirely new owners in 2 or 3 sales, and then that would still continue, and I'm not sure that's what the community.
Well, and the other thing is, I mean, it's, it's just puts more burden on the staff.
Mhm.
All right. Well, we're just moving right along.
Yep.
Okay, now we're down to council concerns. Sharon, I'm gonna start with you,
I have nothing, thank you.
okay? Wow. Preston, yeah, what are your grievances? What are you upset?
I'm upset because you didn't get the name of Abbey Lane.
Next time, Lane's coming up. Miss Dana.
Yeah, one thing I forgot to mention during my, my spiel in the beginning was that the next small cities meeting is actually gonna occur here in the Seaside Library. Seaside is hosting it, but we are also co-hosting it, so we're meeting our obligation to host, but saving money and using their location because they've got a larger location. So it's August 2nd from 11 to 1. If you're interested, it's free, you just have to register.
Awesome. Is that it?
August 2nd.
August 2nd. It's always on a Friday, so from 11 to 1. And I always get valuable information or you're with a group of people that you can ask them, hey, what do you guys do about this? They usually have answers for you.
Okay, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I will give you a motion to adjourn.
I say.
All those in favor say Abby Lynn.
Abby Lynn.
Abby Lynn. All right.
Thank you, Sharon.
All right. Thanks, Chief.
Thank y'all.
Oh. Guess